The Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, it's the second straight week that something abnormal is underway here with Seminole Headlines, but not lesser. It's not lesser. It's just different. The great Tom Lang filling in, as Corey noted, on Facebook for Ira Schafel, who is in Amelia Island, at Amelia Island. I guess trying to find out if the ACC has any fighting chance whatsoever to give their member institutions an opportunity to win in big-time college football. But we are here to discuss, of course, and next hour, headliner questions. You see Corey, I'm Jeff, there is Tom Lang, and this brought to you by our friends at Register Sausage. Yay, sausage! Now,
Tom
Corey,
Lang,
if you'd like to play the role of Ira, you could go ahead and do so.
I thought Tom Lang should. We've extolled the virtues of Register Sausage for a long time. We want a newcomer to come in and tell everybody what they think of Register Sausage.
Well, Corey knows how I was introduced to Register Sausage because he brought some over for a football Sunday last fall. Well, actually, it's probably 2 falls ago at this point, but super delicious, whether it's the andouille or just the spicy sausage, which I enjoy. As long as some people like it filled with cheese and jalapenos and stuff, you just give me the meat. And I'm going to enjoy the sausage. That's how it works.
He doesn't need the filler. He just wants the sausage.
He just wants the straight meat. Registersmeats.com, right? Isn't that the website? Registersmeats.com?
Yeah.
Tom always does that. Ira always does that part. So I feel like registersmeats.com is the way to go there.
Hey, right from the beginning here, I want to establish something. I think moving forward as a group, all of us working for Warchant.com, we're going to have to be aware of the tone regarding conversations surrounding the ACC. I get a sense of bemoaning, perhaps a great lament, and maybe even bleeding over into whining. So we're going to have to, at some point, we're going to have to pivot from whining about the plight of the ACC and thus Florida State, and maybe think about, I don't know that we have solutions at this point, but of another way of presenting it. Because day in and day out this summer, what are we going to do? Just constantly come on and say, boy, it sure sucks to be in this conference. It does. It sucks to be in this conference. What are you going to do about it? We got to figure out a different way to talk about it.
But not bemoan or whine. You don't want us to do that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be tough to do, but we'll try. I feel like before we get into that, though, Jeff, we should address last week. How did you think it went with Tom filling in?
Swimmingly, Corey. We really didn't notice any sort of difference whatsoever. I thought everything went.
I figured I'd like to not apologizing for you guys getting Tom Lang, because I'm sure I didn't watch it. It was probably going to be too painful. You know what I mean? It's like it was going to be too painful to watch or listen to that, because I didn't want it to be great. But I'd like to apologize to listeners for not being able to be there last week. I decided to did I tell you what happened to my stomach, Jeff?
So let me fill everybody in. I feel like between Wake Up Warchant, your appearances, obviously every week with Seminole Headlines, and then over the years, just general conversation, our audience is very well aware that you have a stomach fitting of a temperamental child, or
right.
So I don't know how else you'd like to say it, like somebody with cholera. I don't know, but you have a
dysentery.
Horrific,
dysentery.
Dysentery. You have a horrible set of circumstances that have befell you, unfortunately, regarding your stomach, your gastrointestinal tract, however you want to say it. And here, all jokes aside, we have all grown concerned over the years, because it feels as if, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of gotten progressively worse, partner, and nothing seems to be working. And now you're not drinking beer, you're not drinking soda, you're working out 5 days a week, 3 hours a day.
Right.
You're going to bed on time for the first time in your life. You're doing everything that you should be doing. And then last week, you tell us 3 hours before the show, fellas, I got a stomach ache. I'm locked up in the bathroom. I don't think I'm going to be able to go.
Well, what
gives?
Well, here's the thing. I think there might be a correlation here. I have been watching my diet, and I haven't been drinking soda. But last week, I'm watching the finale of Ozark. I've got probably a half a bag left of chili cheese Fritos. And I'm not talking about the vending machine. I'm talking about a family-size pack of chili cheese Fritos. And I decided, you know what? I don't want that in my house anymore. So I'm just going to eat them all tonight and get it over with and get it done with. So I literally ate, I don't know what that'd be, 140 corn chips, 200 corn. I didn't count them. It's got to be a ton. but I ate half a bag of Fritos. Basically, I ate a whole bag in about a 24, 28-hour span. And I think that might have had something to do with ratcheting up the stomach pain. That's my theory. I'm not a doctor. But that's my theory.
Well, the doctors have yet to solve for your situation, so your theory is as good as theirs, apparently. But
Right.
I would also say that I like that you just decided this is the weekend, this is the time, this moment, right here, right now. Ozark, I'm taking these chips out.
Yeah,
That's it. It's going down that path.
I've been so good for 3 months. I'm like, you know what? This is my cheat day, and I'm going to cheat. Yeah, I'm going to be this is going to be crazy. It's going to be like Tiger Woods cheating. I'm diving into a whole bag of Fritos headlong. And I paid the price, but I've been good ever since. And I'm going to get an ultrasound when I get back, see if we can figure out exactly what this is. Might be a gallbladder issue, or it might just be what they think it is, which is just heavy inflammation because of the acid reflux. But either way, that's enough about that. Let's get back to a better topic: the ACC and football.
Well, okay, so I will say this: our own Irish Chaffel is over at Amelia Island, as noted, and he'll be reporting this week for the ACC meetings. Other conferences, other Power 5 conferences are getting started or have concluded their meetings. And of course, whenever that happens, a lot of things arise, topics that are worth discussing, such as scheduling, divisional realignment, and or absolving divisions altogether. And perhaps that happens. I don't know. I think we would like that. I think the three of us are in favor of that, right? We don't need the divisions.
Correct.
Yeah, that's it's an easy call given that FSU and Georgia Tech play once. I mean, I know the COVID year there was an exception, but is it every 7 years is in the current rotation? It's something crazy like that. They play once in Tallahassee every decade, and the same thing the other way for FSU up in Atlanta. So if you're able to get a little bit more regionality, and I think Corey pointed out yesterday in the video we did on Warchant TV, it cuts down on some costs as well. Gene did as well. That cuts down some costs for travel. I mean, it would be nice to play the only team in the conference that's within a 5-hour drive more than once every 7 years. I think that would be pretty good. So, dissolve those divisions and make it all happen.
But also, I think something we didn't talk about on the video we did on Monday was that, how great would it have been if Florida State played Clemson in 2013? Again, think of the numbers that would have done instead of Duke. Now, I know it was fun to play Duke and Dead Fish Handshake, and then like Louisville and Clemson, the Lamar Jackson year, get a rematch in the ACC championship game instead of Clemson going and pummeling whoever they pummeled that year. I think that stuff will matter too. You get the two best teams in the ACC playing in the championship game, which should increase the TV revenue and should increase the watchability of that game, because it's not going to be, hopefully one of these years, Florida State playing a horrible team from the Coastal or an average team from the Coastal. It'll be playing the second best team in the conference, and Clemson has to play the second best team in the conference. That rarely works out in the ACC.
I think, as Ira pointed out, he spoke with our own Aslan Hajabandi on Warchant TV, which you can watch that. Swafford used to tell us, I'm reading his quote here, Swafford used to tell us every year that there were no interests from the other universities in ever rearranging the divisions or dissolving them altogether. And in the first year of John Phillips, yep, we may get rid of them altogether.
Yep.
Amazing how that switches. Just like that. Everybody has a difference of opinion all of a sudden. They suddenly all want to get rid of them, huh?
Well, I think it's more palatable, too, when the playoff is expanding. Right now you got 4 spots, and however long it's going to take, it's been really dysfunctional to get the expansion of the playoff. And I know the ACC is using that as its last bargaining chip to maybe get a better position and some more money. But if you've got a 6 or 8 or 12-team playoff, whatever it becomes, then it's less crazy to have your best 2 teams play each other in a conference championship setting. Because I think, probably the thought from a lot of conferences before, when it was the BCS system, was, well, you're costing yourself a spot. Yeah, if it's an upset, you're costing yourself a spot. That's not necessarily the case anymore, especially if you have at-large teams on top of automatic bids, which I think is what we all agree that the playoff is going to do in the near future.
Yeah, and I think it does seem obvious that Jim Phillips cares about football. Like he knows. I mean, you wouldn't have hired him if he didn't. But I think this is a good first. This is his first year commissioner, right? Or his first year with,
correct.
Yeah, right. His first full year. To have something like this, to be able to change the divisions and just get rid of him in his first year, that's a good sign to me that he's actually willing to do some things, that he's not just going to steer the ship straight into we don't want to be negative. He's not going towards an iceberg, just a trash bin or something out in the ocean. But he's not going to sink the ship. But I do think that that is a good sign that he does care about football, and he cares about he's trying to have some foresight about what he can do with this conference to give it some legs and give it some life in the new era of college football.
I wish we could all sit down and have a really honest conversation with him about what can and can't be done. I mean, I think it's evident that he cares deeply about football. He knows it's the thing he has to care about most for this conference to survive moving forward. He won't have a job as a commissioner of the ACC if it doesn't exist, and it won't exist if they don't find a way to even out some of the situations with the money differences. And, he said it the day that he was announced as the new commissioner, that everybody has to reimagine their football program and what football means to the ACC. That was him laying down the gauntlet. That was saying, I'm not John Swofford. I don't really care all that much about basketball. We've got to get football in working order. That's basically what he was saying. And I think a lot of people thought, because of his ties not only with the Big Ten, but Notre Dame, that there would be a way that maybe he could massage that situation and you could get Notre Dame in the conference. Well, that hasn't happened. And now he's going to have to really rely on those working relationships with the Big Ten and others to hope that somehow we can create a scenario by which the ACC is viable. We look at the projections. Everybody can read those articles. In the last 2 years, there's been an article in the USA Today, the New York Times. I just read one yesterday in the LA Times, and the desperation the Pac-12 feels. I mean, these funds have been described as feeble by way of comparison to the SEC and the Big Ten, and that is exactly right. And all of the conferences that are not, or all the teams that are not a part of those two conferences, are in desperate and sad shape. So that's where we're at. And I don't know what can be done. I think it's funny, too. This is a week where you're going to hear a lot about the NCAA saying that the enforcement wing or the enforcement arm of the NCAA is looking to do something about it. I'd push back on that, because while we would all want that, Corey and Tom, the courts have already decided they really have no power in this situation, and they know it, and they don't want antitrust lawsuits, and they've already said as much there. And I don't think they're going to be capable of doing much about all of what we're seeing now, which in the eyes of many is the ruination of college football.
I wonder, I was talking with somebody about this yesterday, a pretty high-level booster, about who's going to be the first school to sue a player for breaking a contract. Because that will come. Florida State did not want to do it, with good reason. They didn't want to be the guinea pig in that experiment for some stuff that might have happened a while ago. But it will happen. One of these kids is going to sign a $250,000 2-year deal with some one of these collectives at his school, and then just hit the transfer portal and go somewhere and say, I dare you to sue me. Well, you can be sued. Those contracts can be written where they say you can only get paid for work you do inside this county. They cannot be tied to the school, at least not in Florida. They cannot be tied to playing for Florida State or playing for Georgia. But they can be tied to, you have to do all of your work in Athens, Georgia. All your companies you work for have to be located within Clark County in Athens, Georgia. And when a kid decides he's going to transfer to Oklahoma, theoretically, he's not allowed to break that contract and go get paid in Norman, Oklahoma, but he will, because he doesn't think that collective will sue him. Somebody's going to be the first one to sue a player for this. And that to me, it's got to come down to contracts. It's the only way it can work. I don't know how the NCAA can enforce. You can't even really enforce that it's pay for play, because you can say, no, we've lined up something for him where he's gonna do these 7 commercials and he's gonna get paid this. So I don't know what the enforcement would even be. Do you guys even have an idea what it could be?
No, I mean, from the NCAA level or the sport level, I guess it could be a reduction of scholarships or roster spots. But
but what law are they breaking? What rule are they breaking that you enforce? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, I mean, it could be like a grant of rights on a personal level, like of your image and your likeness, kind of like what Florida State is tied into on the conference level for TV rights and TV dollars. If FSU left the conference, they could, but then they'd have to forfeit all of their TV money that they garner to the ACC. That's the way the contract is written. So it could just be something where they sue and they say, all right, if you make money off of your image and your likeness somewhere else, well, the money is ours. You have to return the money, or there's some sort of penalty that way. It's just, it seems like in the current structure of things, you can sign as many of those deals as you want to across however many markets, and then the money only comes in once you start doing something for the school that you're at. But you're right, Corey. Like in the state of Florida, the collective would have to sue the player, but maybe in other states, the university itself could be the one to sue the player based on the local laws.
Well, that's also part of the problem, is that there isn't a unilateral rule that everybody is adhering to. States differ, universities differ, all of these things. The NCAA doesn't really seem to have a leg to stand on in enforcement. I mean, I think they're posturing right now. They're talking to a big game that they want to come in and they want to enforce existing rules against inducements. But basically, university presidents and others, which is the NCAA when we think about it, are saying, if you care to exist, you have to find a way to enforce rules now that are unilaterally agreed upon. And I don't think that's going to happen, guys.
Well, it's too bad. Just the way the people that are in charge of college football and what they're doing to the sport is really sad to me as somebody that grew up. This is my favorite sport. I've loved it my whole life. I grew up on it. I think we all did. Tom, you might be, I don't know if this is your college football, your favorite sport. You got hockey. You got the Mets. You're loving life.
My sister went here in the early 90s. So the first.
Yeah, that's a good time to fall in love with football.
Yeah, I mean, it was Florida State in 1992, I think was her first year on campus, maybe 91. But I mean, I grew up knowing this in a way that nobody else in my family did from the Northeast. So this is in my.
I just wish that there was more people at the top that seemingly loved college sports like we love college sports, because in college football in particular, because right now, again, when you just go back to the TV revenue, I know you guys are bigger NFL fans than I am by a pretty substantial margin, but you wouldn't be if the NFC got 2 times the salary cap that the NFC East got 2 times the salary cap that the NFC South did. You'd stop caring you wouldn't care that much about foot in the NFL anymore. And that's what's happening right now in college football. These 2 conferences are getting twice the money that everybody else gets. And you want them they're competing for the same prize, but they aren't. You're putting it's like the NFC East and the AFC East getting all the money. Everybody else, good luck. You get $100 million salary cap. Those teams get a $200 million salary cap. Try to beat them anyway. And that's what's going on in college football.
Yeah, and I don't think we can rely on their benevolence.
Nope.
That's not going to happen. I don't think it would. Somebody from within the Big Ten or the SEC to say, guys, this isn't really helpful to Syracuse.
Right.
Guys, I feel terrible for Oklahoma State. What are we going to do? They're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV continues in a moment.
You filled my days with unconditional love. And you also prepared for the day when you couldn't be here. Because of the woman you were back then, I'm able to be the woman I am now. Your planning made this moment possible.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
This is Andy Cohen. When I was a law enforcement officer, I devoted my life to a career of service and protection. Who's protecting you? Give me a call. 850-671-FARM. That's 671-FARM. Helping you is what we do best.
Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi. Not licensed to do business in all 50 states.
When I get home from work, I'm ready to relax. So I call Swain Pools and Spas and put my pool in the back. I call Swain Pools and Spas. Now I'm soaking up the fun when I want to.
Truckloads of new and used Caldera and Hot Spring Spas are available now at Swain Pools and Spas. Don't wait. Get to Swain Pools and browse the best inventory to find the spa of your dreams. These won't last long, so come see us today. Just look for the huge sign on Tharp Street or call 386-7113 for Swain Pools and Spas.
I know what you're thinking right now. Where can I find a place to get my car fixed and also check out some awesome new hot tubs and spas while I wait? Well, you're in luck. Because when you bring your car or truck in to get serviced at Tallahassee Car Care, it's under the same roof as Swain Pools and Spas for tires, brakes, bodies, tune-ups, oil changes, and all the service you need to get back on the road. Choose the certified technicians at Tallahassee Car Care. Drop by our shop on Tharp Street or visit online at TallahasseeCarCare.com.
Dirty exterior? Don't scrub it. Wet it and forget it. Wet and Forget, the easy outdoor cleaner. Wet and Forget works overtime with Mother Nature to eliminate unsightly black and green stains on the exterior of your home with no scrubbing, power washing, or bleach. Use Wet and Forget on all your outdoor surfaces, including decks, siding, roofs, and patios. Wet and Forget's available in a concentrate or extreme reach hose-in. Purchase Wet and Forget in store or online at Lowe's, Menards, Ace, or Walmart.
Angie's List is now Angie, your home for everything home. With Angie, you could cross your next project off your to-do list before this ad is over. Just tell us what you need and we'll handle the rest, sending a top pro to get it done. Or browse reviews, compare quotes from pros, and connect instantly, all for free. For everything from routine maintenance to a dream remodel. Because however you want your project done, we'll get it done. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
Hey Tallahassee, it's Sarah with Seminole Auto Glass. You're probably driving right now, which means you're surrounded by glass. Did you know that each piece is made differently? Your windshield is 2 sheets of glass with a thin plastic in between. This allows it to take an impact without going all the way through. Side and back glasses are typically tempered. This strengthening process is what allows them to be shattered in the event of an emergency. Regardless of the glass or how it breaks, we can help. Trust your local auto glass experts. Seminole Auto Glass, proudly serving the Big Bend for over 15 years. Better call Seminole.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark.
Out of curiosity, do you think that because we're kind of talking about two different things here. The original premise of NIL was something the three of us agree with. I think that most fair-minded people around college football and love the game thought, yeah, it'll be a good thing for players to use their name, image, and likeness in order to make some money while playing football. It's turned into pay for play very quickly, and that's why we have these conversations time and again about, well, what can be done, what can be done. I am curious. I saw yesterday a story in which Dan Murphy wrote for ESPN. The NCAA's Division I Board of Directors published new guidelines to clarify that boosters, including recently created companies designed to provide athletes at a particular school with endorsement deals, should not have any contact with prospective college athletes, their family members, or their representatives. And basically, these are guidelines that are crafted by a working group of athletic directors, conference commissioners, who are trying to figure out, they were tasked with the responsibility of figuring out earlier this year, along with the NCAA rules that are in place, how do we tackle the evolving marketplace for student athletes? You think something does happen along those lines? Because there are different conversations. NIL, agreed upon rules amongst athletic directors and university presidents across the board in the NCAA, as opposed to what we're seeing now, which is a pay-for-play model.
I think personally, yeah, I think they will adopt a rule like that. I think, even Florida State fans, and we've talked to the Rising Spear guys a bunch, but, they've talked openly about how they'll talk to recruits and their parents and tell them what they can't, give them anything to sign necessarily until they're on campus or committed, but especially for the high school recruits, but they talk about how they're in contact with recruits and parents about deals that might be awaiting them if they come to Florida State. And I feel like a lot of Florida State fans and just football fans in general, when they hear this about their own team, are like kind of icky about it. Like, oh, you're talking about these kids. You don't have, you know what I mean? That's just an icky kind of feeling about it. But the point, the counter to that is everybody else is doing it. You need to do it. And even if there is a rule in place saying, hey, you're not allowed to talk to these recruits and their parents until they're actually signed on camp, they're signed, their faxes are in, is that really going to stop people? Not the fine folks at Rising Spear, they'll abide by the rules of the day. But I'm thinking most teams in the SEC will not care one iota about. They'll find a way. There'll be a middle ground, a middleman to be able to still offer these things to these players during the recruiting process.
Yeah, that's why I think this is just a tough bell to unring, because the deterrent, I don't know that you can create one that's strong enough. Is it, your conference payout from the TV networks that you get fined a percentage of? Is it roster spots? I mean, what would it have to be to get the universities or the member institutions to actually abide by those rules? And so, like, even if you unionize players and let's say that you had slotting for player salaries, within each team, and 1 to 10 gets so much money, and 11 to 20 and so forth down the list. Well, you could still, if that was the standardized payment structure for kids in a super conference or whatever vision for the future, if that's what exists, they could still make money with handshakes on the side from boosters. I don't know. Like, you've legitimized and entered more people into the discussion and to the treasure chest of money for each university. People are less queasy about donating to Rising Spear than they were to a bagman 3 or 4 years ago. But I just don't know where the corruption or the under the table stuff would stop. Like, what would need to happen? The penalties would have to be absurd in order for that to happen, like they do in the NFL or the NBA with tampering. They give you fines that are crazy big, and then you lose draft picks. I just don't know.
And the NCAA still hasn't ruled on Kansas from the Adidas thing from forever ago, the basketball team. Who cares? They're not going to rule. And when they do come up with enforcement. It's 7 years after the fact, and probably most of those coaches are gone from that school anyway. Hugh Freeze is the only one that I feel like got hammered at the school he was at, but that was because he was calling prostitutes on his school phone. Like, it just, the NCAA is toothless. I hope they can somehow get around it, figure out a way to corral this, but I don't have any hope. I was going to ask you, Jeff, and Tom both. What do the Bucks need most this year? Like, what could put them over the top to win the Super Bowl, do you think? Where are they weakest at going into the season?
Tom, you and I haven't talked about this yet. Where we think they're weakest going into the season. Well, I will always say that, a dominant offensive line changes everything. So they were able to replace a glaring need. You lose a Pro Bowler and you bring in a Pro Bowler at guard. So I don't know if I would say offensive line. Tight end, Tom, they don't. I mean, if Gronk doesn't come back, they really have nothing at that position.
So what I was going. This was my point. This isn't Buccaneer headlines. I was trying to make a larger point.
I knew what your larger point was. I was going to take it and run with it, but okay. Go
let's
ahead.
say Kelsey was a free agent, but the Bucks didn't have enough money under the cap to give him his 4 years, $55 million. But you guys were billionaires, are multi-millionaire Bucks fans. Why wouldn't y'all give him his own NIL deal to come to Tampa Bay? He takes less money. He signs 4 years for $26 million, which gets him under the cap. And then y'all give him an extra $20 million bump because you're fans of your team and you love your team. It's weird that happens in college football, and it will continue and always happen in college football, but never happens in pro football. Like, there's a lot of really rich fans of NFL teams that could entice free agents to be, come on, we'll get you under the salary cap, but we'll pay you out of my own pocket.
Yeah,
NFL fans don't care as much, guys. That's what it boils down to.
Well, it doesn't come from the fans' pockets, but I think that might happen in certain salary cap sports. Like, for example, if Brady signs for $25 million, which he did, the year that Jameis was available and all that, that was really low. That's what Phillip Rivers signed for in Indianapolis. I mean, you're telling me that they're the same quarterback? I think in some instances,
you think the owner pays him out of his own pocket a little bit, around the cap, goes around the cap,
I think
under the table and around the cap.
If they've got friends in the industry, they might ensure that, maybe Tom Brady's face is on an ad one time in a newspaper and he gets paid a little bit extra money.
We'll set him up for a $375 million Fox broadcasting deal when his career is over.
Correct. Maybe that'll happen.
Nuts. That's crazy. Are you going to tune into a game because Tom Brady's broadcasting a game?
No, but all those guys. I mean, you think about what Tony Romo made. Everybody these days is making a pretty penny.
That market is insane because we watch football because of the teams that are playing. Nobody watches football, and if I'm watching a game and I don't like the announcer, I'm not turning it off. If I care about the game, I might turn it down. But you're still making your ad revenue. These color commentators, the money they get, that market is never going to correct itself, and it is out of control. That's nuts.
Yeah, the only network I'd say did a good job with that was ESPN, because Monday Night Football has been really bad for a really long time. So they needed to spend their way out of it. Also, they're getting Super Bowls out of the deal with ABC is now to be in the Super Bowl rotation. But you're right. Like, I mean, I don't think Brady's going to be very good at it. Drew Brees is not very good at it. But these guys are getting sight unseen, talent untried, huge sums of money just for their name, like as though their brand is going to bring more people. I don't know of any, even the women demographic. You're like, all right, Tom Brady's a really good looking guy. I don't know that anybody's going to be like, we have to go to
see him. He's not on the field broadcasting the game. You just hear his voice.
Right. We get the secondary level 425 kickoff. We got to go to the bar to watch America's Game of the Week because Brady's on the broadcast. So that just doesn't happen.
It's not happening. It's crazy how they spend their money. They could have spent that $375 million. They could have given it to the ACC. And we'd have a fighting chance in this thing, Jeff.
Really quickly, I wanted to read Mark, who contributed to what we do here on Seminole Headlines and Warchant TV. And he wrote, Corey, did you get your NIL deal with the new Wawa store in Tally? Great show, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your contribution, as always.
Mark, you're the best. And I'll tell you this, when Wawa comes, we are going to give him, you know how Aslan always makes fun of me because I talk about Corner Pocket more now than I ever did our other sponsors on that show because I'm there all the time. If we get Wawa as a sponsor, I will be doing shows from Wawa, and all I will do is trash Circle K. That will be my whole show, is trash the other gas station in our fair city. Because Wawa, guys, you if you haven't seen one yet, you are going to be amazed at what gas station life is like outside of the city of Tallahassee. It's unbelievable.
Think people
it's a new day.
Want to cross a Wawa in their time, and if not, perhaps a Busy Bee or
Sheets.
Or a Buc-ee's or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they've been.
So you're going to appreciate it.
Is it about the food there, or is it just about the cleanliness?
No, he's scared to death of gas stations, Tom. It's about the lights.
The Tallahassee gas stations.
Yeah, he's afraid of a dark gas station. He
they're
thinks
death traps. It's well lit, Tom. I'm glad you asked. They're well lit. The food is fine. They're clean. They're welcoming. They're like, hey, come in here at 9:30 at night and fill up. Not run for your lives like the ones in Tallahassee are.
I've never been scared of that gas station. Just want that to be
those going to be your famous last words.
Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. We continue in a moment.
Is investigating 2 deaths in a shooting Monday, and all the cases are unrelated. TPD says the shooting was reported at Seminole Grand Apartments around 1 a.m. After several calls made to 911, officers arrived at the scene and found one victim wounded at the apartment complex. 2 death investigations were underway beginning Monday afternoon, and TPD says the cases are unrelated. One man was found dead in a ravine near a wooded area on the 1000 block of Silver Ridge Drive, and police are still investigating the cause of death. Officers responded to the area at about 12:53 p.m., the incident report states. About 50 minutes later, police responded to another death, which was reported at the Hilton Garden Inn on South Blairstone Road. Hotel staff found a man's body, and police worked with medical examiner's office to find out how he died. If anyone has any additional information concerning these incidents, please call TPD at 850-891-4200. These are open and ongoing investigations. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 Local News Update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Sunny skies and calm this afternoon with highs around 85. Northeast winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Clear skies again tonight, lows around 60. Ample sunshine expected tomorrow, 87. Temps near average Thursday and Friday with highs in the mid-80s. Chance for scattered storms Friday. This report brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 78.
Well. Hey, Jeff, look at this place.
Yeah. Well, doing well. It's been a while since I've seen you, brother, but, it hasn't been a while since I've been over to Gordo's. I go there on the regular because of you, Eddie.
Well, we keep you regular.
Well, that's true, but I think of Gordo's as a place to sit down, have a cold beer, talk to your friends, enjoy the sports, eat the delicious food. But I think of you as Uncle Eddie, a man who takes care of his people and takes care of the town.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Hey, and we'll keep you regular.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
Here's what you missed on the Greg Tish Show.
We need to have history. We need to have literature. It deserves an explanation. We don't need to be promoting lifestyles that come into play for your average elementary school.
Well, I had an experience with this. When my daughter was in school, her teacher gave her a book to read, but then she asked me what the C word is.
That was in the book.
That was in the book.
Okay, so about the C word. So you're talking about conservatives, right?
The Greg Tish Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., only on Real Talk 93.3.
Seminole Headlines is brought to you by Register Sausage.
Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Welcome back. There's Corey, there's Tom, and I am Jeff. You are you, and you're listening to us. We appreciate that. By the way, if you're watching on Warchant TV, make sure you like and subscribe, pass it around, all that good stuff. We started looks like in the chat, we've started a gas station war. There you go, Corey.
Corey's muted, by the way. Corey, you got to unmute yourself.
Corey muted himself.
I'm an idiot. Hey, guys, 2022. I'm still figuring all this stuff out. I'd like to apologize for the way I look. Usually I could this, so I have to use the microphone, the one that looks like something from a sci-fi movie, because it is a podcast still, and I want to sound good for the podcast listeners. But by doing so, I wasn't able to use the camera that Gene got me because I only have 2 ports for my face, so I'm all blurry and gross looking. So I apologize for the way I look. But, we can't have everything, gang. We can't have everything.
I think everybody decided to tune in today. They're like, I'm hoping Corey looks good.
Well, right, man, like the Tom Brady argument.
This is a bitter disappointment.
Right,
I don't know about the content now. What I was going to say, by the way, is I do think, all jokes aside, I'm kind of curious. You know how, and I think, Corey, you probably have thought of this. I know, Tom, you and I have on the show. Like there's a tendency to overreact to things, especially things that adversely affect this conference or for Florida State's purposes, especially while we're down. I do think there's going to be sort of a leveling out period where we're not always going to be stuck in this purgatory. I think Florida State's going to be all right. I want to say that because I think more than anything, we see a lot of people in the chat or on Facebook with their questions or on Twitter each week or in the email inbox. And it's a sense that Florida State is never going to be good again. It's this fatalism. I do think that it has been a healthy dose of reality. Florida State may never be the juggernaut, certainly, that they were, and they haven't been since, the 14 consecutive years of top 4 finishes. No school has ever done that but Florida State. So that was the exception to the rule, an outlier, and you're never going to see that again in all likelihood, not here or maybe anywhere else. But I would say that I think that for what we're playing for right now, it's not national titles, and I think that's been a hard thing for people to accept. Florida State is not in the running for a national title and won't be in the next 2 to 3 years. And under the current system, it would be hard for them to get back to that. I do think there will come a time where things will be adjusted, whatever the rules are that are going to come down that will help in this NIL situation or the inducements that we continue to talk about shifting or the way that that's handled certainly changing. But I also think that we're headed towards basically 2 super conferences or some sort of mega television deal. And Florida State would be a part of any one of those kinds of deals. Florida State's played big boy football for a very long time. It has the kind of cachet and name brand that would be part of any major type of league that we're talking about here. So at Clemson, probably Miami. I don't know if they still matter, but I mean, all of those types of schools, I think, that have had the cachet over the last 40 to 50 years that Florida State has would be a part of that. And I think that lifeline's coming. I don't think it's coming next year. I think it's coming down the line, and Florida State will once again matter, and they'll be playing with the big boys. In the interim, you're playing to try to win the Atlantic, get to a place where you can win the Atlantic, maybe win the conference, and you can certainly be better than we've been because this has been a nightmare. But you're not playing on the same playing field as Georgia and Alabama, that's for sure.
You'd have to get lucky, right? Like you'd have to get number one, the playoff has to expand, and when it expands to 12 teams, whenever that is, or 16 or whatever they do, Florida State can get to a point where it's a playoff team. That's not asking a lot. In fact, Michigan State was in the playoff a few years ago. Now I know the landscape's even shifted since then, but Florida State, if it's a 12-team playoff, is definitely capable of getting to a playoff, making a playoff push. They can go 9-3, 10-2, and be a top 12 team in this country within the next 3 years if everything goes right. But can they win 3 or 4? Will they have a roster to be able to compete 3 or 4 straight weeks with the Alabamas and Georgias? Probably not right now. But so the goal right now, go be a top 15 team and see what happens. Also, see what doors that opens up or kicks down, man. Like, you've been so irrelevant here for most of these kids since they've been paying attention to college football, these recruits. They haven't known Florida State to be great. They know who Jalen Ramsey and Derwin James are and Jameis Winston are, but they were young. They were in elementary school or middle school when that stuff was happening. So just go be great, go be good, and then maybe that opens the door to the great players again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you see what Norvell was able to do last year, brought this up on the wake-up hit, Corey, that you go 5-7, and yet even with a National Signing Day disappointment in December, you're signing a consensus top 20 class with what? Like with what ammunition other than Florida State itself? Because you don't have a ton of coaches who have ties to the footprint that you are recruiting. You're going 5-7 on the heels of a 3-win COVID season, and still you're good enough to sign a top 20 class. So what happens if you're armed with the ammunition of 8 wins or 9 in the regular season and maybe 9 or 10 with the bowl game added on at the end of the year? If you put yourself in that position and you've already recruited a consensus top 20 class in the state of Florida with those, those weights around your neck, then what would it become if you actually win some football games and look competitive in 11 of the 12 games that you play? How compelling would your pitch be at that point?
So Ryan brings up in the chat, he asked me specifically, do we anymore though, Jeff? We haven't been good since high school kids were 8 years old. Yeah, well, that's not unlike the situation we found ourselves in after the lost decade. I mean, Florida State had done nothing towards the back end of Bobby's last year's. Certainly I had been on the radio at that time, much to the chagrin of many, saying that you can't, just because you built it doesn't mean you can burn it down. And we were having these kinds of heated discussions every day as Florida State ventured further and further into a world of irrelevance. But I was talking about the brand and the cachet and how it's instantly recognizable, and how at some point, if you get the right guy pushing the right buttons and once again tap in to the wonderful resources that you have, which has to do with regionality of recruits, right? That you can still win and win big. You can still get bigger, stronger, faster. There's such a surplus of athlete in the South that you could do that. And lo and behold, it happened. Jimbo Fisher came in, modernized what they were doing, primarily in recruiting. Yes, the practices shifted. There were some other things that changed, but the way they practiced and the focus on the types of athletes and projecting forward what they could be allowed for Florida State in rather short period of time to win and win big, and then go undefeated and win a national championship, and then make the first ever college football playoff, et cetera. Florida's history has shown that Florida State can win and win big if they're operating at peak efficiency. The thing that's most fearful for us now, I think, is that even operating at peak efficiency, because Florida State is a younger university relative to the Notre Dames, Michigans, Ohio States, Alabamas, Georgias of the world, if you will, that they're never going to have the kind of money in order to compete if this becomes a money game. That part is true, but they can certainly do better than 5-7, and they can certainly find a way to compete for and win some Atlantic titles here and there and get into the conference championship game, which also changes revenue streams, which also changes your ability to compete long term. Let's focus for now on getting back to that place, and getting back to that place is only asking you to win 8-9 games.
And you're not competing against Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State and Texas in that framework. You're competing against Wake Forest
with anybody.
Well, you're correct, but you're competing against Wake Forest, NC State, Syracuse, and I promise you got more money coming into your football program than those schools do. There's no excuse to keep losing to Wake Forest, none. But you can't blame it on resources anyway, or lack of money, because they're doing it with a lot less than you're doing it with. So in that regard, the goal, it's just for right now, for this window. Hopefully, it's a window. The goal shifts from national title implications for Florida State fans to, like you said, compete for an Atlantic Division title. I know that hurts. I know you guys didn't grow up watching Florida State football and just hoping to have a chance to win the Atlantic Division. I'm sure you were like me and didn't even know who was in the Atlantic Division for a lot of those years in the 90s because it didn't matter. But now it does matter. Well, I guess there weren't divisions back when it was in the 90s. You guys understand. But now just shift shift the focus. If you can compete for ACC Atlantic titles, that begets maybe competing for ACC titles, and that begets competing for national titles. But first things first, take care of your own house and beat the programs you're supposed to beat. And I think Mike Norvell can do that. I think he can get to this program to a place where it's an 8 or 9 win program. The question I still have too, will this offense ever get going? This is a very important year for him. But also, can he recruit at a level to get them back to a national championship caliber? Like Jimbo did it immediately. And I know the landscape was different in 2010 than it is in 22. But so far, Norvell has done a decent job recruiting. But he's not gonna win Florida State fans over with top 20 recruiting classes, because they saw Jimbo come in and in 2 years get a number 6 class and a number 1 class. And Norvell so far hasn't been anywhere close to that. Can he get anywhere close to that and start bringing in 5-star guys?
Not with 5-win seasons, certainly. And
Right,
what Jimbo
correct.
and what Jimbo did, and I'm glad you noted this, but I want to reiterate this. Those circumstances were very different. You know that, Corey. He was already on the team in terms of a coach on the coaching staff, seeing what needed to change. Also, recruiting was very different. There are a lot of factors there. He also wasn't doing so on the heels of back-to-back coach. You get the point.
Yeah.
So being a third coach in 4 years made that a little bit.
But you got to
more
start
difficult.
bringing in the players, right? You got to start bringing in some 5-star. If you're going to get to where you want to go eventually, you can't recruit at the Memphis level. And I know he's done better than he was recruiting in Memphis, but this isn't a fan base that's used to 3-star rosters, 3.5-star rosters. That you've got to start getting just the AZ Thomases of the world. More of those guys.
Well, I want to touch on something else here that folks brought up in the chat that I think is interesting. We'll do it in a moment here. It's Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
Contractors, designers, and homeowners. Better design ideas. Better quality tile, carpet, and hardwood flooring. Better mosaics, ceramic, and vinyl solutions. And Sellers makes it easier with their amazing showroom and first-class professionals. Maybe it's time to get Sellers working for you on Capitol Circle Northeast, just north of Mahan Drive, or online at sellerstile.com for better style, quality, and design. Go with Sellers in Tallahassee. Call 656-8453.
This is Patty Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're ready.
He's recording.
Why are you always saying your last name? It's Patty and Scott. Everybody
I don't
knows
know
who
that.
Patty and Scott.
I don't know. This is Patty Wilson. Not this is. I am Patty Wilson.
What is the idea behind said promo?
It's for Patty's Playhouse. We're on Patty's Playhouse Saturdays at 11. Tune in. That's stupid. Just tune in. Saturdays at 11. Patty Wilson, Patty's Playhouse. House talk with a happy ending.
Each and every time.
Physical stress on our bodies can take its toll as the years go by. Whether you're looking to get back into an old sport or just want to spend more time outdoors to explore all life has to offer in our beautiful city, the dedicated team at TOC is here for you every step of the way. You can trust TOC for all your orthopedic needs. And now, scheduling an appointment has never been easier. Just visit teamtoc.com and click schedule online. That's teamtoc.com.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Hey, this is your chiropractor, Dr. Ryan Finn with Finn Chiropractic, encouraging you to spring into health. People are outside, working and playing, enjoying Tallahassee's beauty, but new injuries and sinus problems are blooming everywhere. While we at Finn Chiropractic have helped thousands with spring-related issues, the only way to know if we can help you or your loved one is to come in for the Phenomenal Health Evaluation. Go to finnchiro.com to take advantage of our new patient special offer. That's FENN, finnchiro.com. And remember, your chiropractor loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Many orthodontists in Tallahassee can straighten a smile, but at Birch Orthodontics, they're dedicated to providing the finest care possible. The experienced and friendly staff is trained in all of the latest techniques. So whether you need standard treatment like braces or Invisalign, or you have a more complicated case requiring extra attention, Birch Orthodontics is here for you. Set up your free consultation today by visiting birchorthodontics.com, BURCH orthodontics.com, or call 850-877-1692. At Birch Orthodontics, they create beautiful smiles that last a lifetime.
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey.
So going back to taking a look here at some of the things that were brought up in the chat while we were talking, and we'll get to headliner questions next hour. I don't think there are a ton, but Corey, I did see you stepped up to the table on Facebook there. That was good.
I tried, buddy. I tried. Ira didn't ask for questions on Twitter. That's weird.
He did not.
When he's not a part of the show, it just doesn't exist. I see how it is.
All right. So getting back to this, we were talking about opportunities to be realistic, I guess, and compete for something that could beget something much better. And we were talking about maybe trying to, just win the Atlantic. How about going over 500? How about we do that?
There you go. That's the first step.
Yeah, first step. Just let's have a better than 500 record. But a couple people pointed out on the chat, I tend to agree with them. Isn't there a sense that Clemson is on the verge of a decline? I think there is. I think you see that, right? The loss of coaches. You watch that middling season for them with that loaded roster that they had a season ago. Florida State had no business being on the road with a chance to win that football game. They're a player or two away from actually winning that football game. So I guess, the Atlantic is open, guys. I mean, if not them, it ought to be us. It's not why not us. It ought to be Florida State University. And if you're steady behind Wake or Louisville and teams of that ilk, then you really can't afford to sit around complaining and wondering when you're going to play for a national title, because you're not even middling in the ACC. So right now, I think it's easy for the fan base, myself included, and everybody involved with Florida State who cares in any way that they play well, that your focus should be on beating the teams that you need to beat in the ACC, which is almost all of them, just about on a regular basis. If you're anywhere close to being a power that you once were, you'll beat all of those teams. And we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, the point with Clemson is a salient one. It just sounds like there's a lot of noise in the system. And we remember what that was like, and especially you, Jeff, you were onto it in 2016 before the Louisville game. And you just had this. I remember talking between segments of a few shows. You're like, something's up.
I felt like it was off, yeah.
Whatever that Spidey sense was, I mean, the way Dabo's quoted in an article every week, it seems, and you're like, man, something's wrong behind the scenes. He's complaining about the portal. He's complaining about the way college football is, or he says, I'm never going into the portal. My answers are right there in that locker room. It would be unfair to those kids. Like, he just says a bunch of things that you're thinking, is he really happy there? Or is he just trying to make trouble on the way out? The question is, have they replaced DJ? If they've got a better quarterback in there, then they'll cover up a lot of those issues. The hard part in the Atlantic, too, for FSU is you've got three teams who are ranked in a lot of people's preseason polls. NC State in some polls in the top 10, Clemson right there in the top dozen, and then Wake Forest as well. So if you finished in second place in the Atlantic this year, it's not far-fetched to believe, Corey, as you said last segment, that FSU is in the top 15 or top 18 in the rankings in the country. And boy, would this be a different show with you three guys on a Tuesday if Florida State was ever finishing in the polls in the top 20.
Man, think about that, Jeff. Think about that statement and where we were with this show just 7 years ago. Jeff's like, and I agreed with him, kind of. He's like, Jimbo can't just keep straight going 9-3 every year. We'll run him out of town.
Yes.
And now here we are just hoping to be a top 20 program again, or we're a number one show, but we want to be for a number, at least a top 10 program or a top 20 program. But yeah, it's just crazy how far this thing's fallen. I will say this about Clemson. Unless we think Dabo is Nick Saban, you can't keep losing great assistant coaches and just keep the plane going at 33,000 feet. I mean, there's going to be a dip unless you're Nick Saban. And I don't think Dabo is Nick Saban. So at some point, something is going to matter. And I could be wrong. I mean, if he gets this thing back and they're top 10 for the next 3 or 4 years after losing Venables and losing the OC that he lost, and the fact that they had a run of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence 6 out of 7 years, and both those guys were great as freshmen. That was an unprecedented run of quarterback play. If he can get this back anywhere close to what it was during that stretch, then yeah, he is an all-time great coach. He's one of the best that's ever done it. I don't trust that he can, though. I don't think he's got the Nick Saban DNA, and I don't think he makes the same hires that Nick Saban does.
Well, because you saw he was this close to losing his job before taking a pay cut and giving out huge amounts of money to assistants to come save the day, which they did. And I give him a ton of credit for that, by the way. At the time, I kind of laughed and said, well, we know what that's about. But he did what he needed to do in order to win, and that's very good leadership. That's understanding what you don't understand, right? And bringing in people who do. But hey, it's not just that he's lost, say, Tony Elliott. He's lost 2 offensive minds. He's lost a wicked bright defensive mind. Some say the best in the country. That is a lot to lose, and he's done so, as Tom points out, while steady complaining about everything around him.
Yeah.
And so you do get the sense that something is very off there. Now, they still have that lost roster is still loaded. And you're right. If they get a modicum of decent play at quarterback, well, hell, even last year with bad quarterback play, they won 10 games.
Yeah.
Lest we forget, they weren't bad last year. They went 10-3. If they had just had decent quarterback play, they might have gone 12-1, 11-1, during the regular season. So they're not far from being good, but I do sense that it's starting to open up a little bit, is my only point. And if you're looking for things to grab onto as a measure of hope, it's that Clemson's not the juggernaut that they were. The Atlantic is opening up for Florida State to compete in. This should be Norvell's best season yet. And that's why when we talk about this being a pressure-packed year, it resoundingly, I say, absolutely it is, because now there's a little crack in the door. And you've got to hit it. You've got to find a way into that room and make something of yourself so that you have a chance moving forward to get the kinds of recruits that we keep talking about that can flip the program and maybe let them, compete for and win an ACC championship. They're a ways away, but it's frustrating. But this is a chance this year to do something about it. It's going to be a hard road though, because again, we see with the ranked teams that they play and the veteran quarterbacks. Hour number 2 forthcoming. I think I hear the music. Maybe I'm wrong on that. If not, play the music. We'll get the headliner questions in a moment.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3. WVFT, Greta, Tallahassee.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. President Biden acknowledges that when it comes to bringing inflation under control, his powers are limited. He says the Federal Reserve has a dual responsibility.
First is achieving maximum employment, and second is stable prices. And while I'll never interfere with the Fed's judgments and decisions or tell them what they have to do, they're independent. I believe that inflation is our top economic challenge right now.
The president speaking from the White House earlier. Also at townhall.com, with gas prices hitting a new all-time high, drivers are left fuming at the pump. Julie Walker has more.
At this BP station in Brooklyn, a gallon of regular is $4.55. Uber driver Raphael Bowen spent $35 and got less than 8 gallons of gas and says, what can he do?
I just have to drive. That's my living.
Joel Baxter won't take the subway to work and drives. He spent $50 on nearly 10 gallons.
I think the government should do something about it, because it's 505 for premium.
President Biden has vowed to do everything he can to ease the pain at the pump. The White House blaming Russia. According to AAA, the national average for a gallon of regular gas hit $4.37 today, the highest ever, according to the association. Julie Walker, New York.
And Indiana's sheriff says the Alabama murder suspect and jailer who evaded authorities for more than a week were heavily armed and preparing for a shootout when they were captured. Vanderburgh County Sheriff Dave Whiting says they were carrying 4 handguns and an AR-15 rifle along with $29,000 in cash. He said convict Casey White showed no remorse over the death of jail official Vicky White, who was found mortally wounded with a gun in her hand. On Wall Street, it's been a roller coaster ride, but the Dow is now up 151 points. The NASDAQ ahead 245. More at townhall.com.
I'm about to compare a pepper shaker to a cash-out refinance. Hang with me. You know when you're at a restaurant and they ask, would you like some fresh ground pepper? And then they crank that giant tube, but almost nothing comes out? For me, only a certain amount of time is socially acceptable to wait. I know that getting that pepper out might make my life better, but it just seems too impossible. And that's what we hear people say about the cash-out refinance. People realize that the value of their home has gone up like hot pepper the last few years, leaving all this extra money sitting inside their home. But is it too hard to get out? It's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage. If you're interested in cashing out the extra pepper in your home, we're good at doing all the work while you just sit back and relax. And often, your mortgage payment and years in the loan will stay the same. If you'd like to hear about your options,
we are United Faith Mortgage.
United Faith Mortgage is a DBA of United Mortgage Corp. 25 Melville Park Road, Melville, New York. Licensed mortgage banker. For all licensing information, go to nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Corporate NMLS number 1330. Equal housing lender. Licensed in Alaska, Hawaii, Georgia, North Dakota, South Dakota, or Utah.
Well. Hey, Jeff, look at this place.
Yeah. Well, doing well. It's been a while since I've seen you, brother, but, it hasn't been a while since I've been over to Gordo's. I go there on the regular because of you, Eddie.
Well, we keep you regular.
Well, that's true. But I think of Gordo's as a place to sit down, have a cold beer, talk to your friends, enjoy the sports, eat the delicious food. But I think of you as Uncle Eddie, a man who takes care of his people and takes care of the town.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Hey, and we'll keep you regular.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Live and living color and totally free. Subscribe to Warchant TV on YouTube, the digital home of Warchant.com. From the practice field to pregame and the phone calls afterwards, Warchant's YouTube channel is home to live programming like Seminole Headlines. And click or tap the subscribe button. That's it. It's totally free. Warchant TV on YouTube. Just another reason we're the ultimate Seminole sports source.
It's time for Seminole Headlines, featuring Warchant.com's Jeff Cameron, managing editor Ira Schofel, and senior writer Corey Clark. Your weekly dose of all things FSU, pistols, and pies starts right now. Here's Jeff Cameron.
Hour number 2, Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. Headliner questions about to come your way here momentarily. First, though, let's say thanks to Birch Orthodontics. Dr. Birch doing all that she can to save the Cameron and Schofel children. A world of crooked teeth. No, straight, beautiful teeth as they walk out there boldly securing their futures. And you can go there to knowing that you're getting the best in care, all the options imaginable, such as saving money, long-term payment plans, all that good stuff. We're talking about Birch Orthodontics, Dr. Birch, who no doubt will be celebrating probably we got a doubleheader tonight, don't we, guys, against JU? Is that right?
Yeah. 4-7, buddy. 4-7.
Well, she's a huge baseball fan, and on the last 2 times I've run into her, which is rather frequent, probably more frequently than I'd like.
Right.
But not because I don't love her. I do. It just means I'm at the orthodontics office. But that said, she's always going to the baseball game. So here to baseball. Speaking of which, go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, just make sure that the super chats keep coming in, everybody, because it goes to the Cameron Schofel Birch Fund. So
That's right.
That seems about right. So, hey, a fun week for the baseball team. Very predictable. They played 2 bad teams, and they went 2-2.
Yeah, and they got shut out in one of the games, and then lost to scored a grand total of 2 runs in the first game at Boston College.
Hey, but they answered resoundingly so with 18 runs over the next 2 games, Corey. So
suck it, Eagles.
Yeah, get you some of that. So now vaunted JU, who beat, of course, Florida State earlier this year. Not a great team. That might mean that we got back-to-back losses tonight.
Can you predict anything? You can't. Not with that team. You can't predict anything.
Some of it is baseball. Because I think I should point out the Pirates dominated the Dodgers last night, 5-1. Game was never competitive. Los Angeles Dodgers, top to bottom, were outclassed and embarrassed in a game in which I think they mustered 3 or 4 hits. What are you going to do? It is the mighty Pirates. But that is, oddly enough, baseball as a sport. So there is a little of that. And then there's also the ID that is this team, the identity of this team, which is that they can be really good and not good at all.
Yeah, I'm feeling a 3-2 week, where they split today. They take 2 or 3 from Miami at home. And that seems about on brand. And what that would do is put them on the brink of being a top 16 national seed, maybe getting to host a regional.
Correct.
Yeah, I have said all year long that I know it's not a popular take to have on a show in which you're given the responsibility of having an opinion about Florida State athletics and really pretty much anything you bring up. I don't know what to make of the baseball team, man. They do a lot of things terribly. And they do some other things superbly, and they are capable of beating anybody in a series in the country, and that includes Tennessee and anybody else you want to name. They're also capable of getting beat very quickly by teams ranked in the hundreds.
Yeah,
that's who they are. I think that is an apt descriptor. I think the season has laid that bare. Am I not? I mean, I think that's spot on. That's who they are. Right when you would go off on them, and Corey, I know at one point we all did on Seminole Headlines when they had lost 6 of 7 or whatever it was, and we were like, well, this is impossible. They strike out. They don't pick up the baseball. They don't run the bases very well. Their pitching isn't as good as it was cracked up to be coming into the season, et cetera, et cetera. They turned right around and dominated 2 really good teams and showed why they were well thought of and why that front end pitching gives them a chance in any given series. And that was a week where they picked up the baseball and they actually hit it as well. So it's hard to know.
I agree. They're terrible on the road. They have been all year. That's a weird thing to go to Stetson after playing as well as you did that weekend against TCU, to go to Stetson and get 2 hits, get shut out by a bad Stetson. That's not even a good Stetson team, whatever that would look like. It's a bad Stetson team, and you got shut out. And then the next game, At Boston, another bad team, you scored 2 runs in the first and nothing else. You went 18 innings and scored 2 runs total after what you did against TCU. That's not – I don't know that that's normal, because it's one thing to get dominated by good pitching. All good teams can do that. But to get dominated by bad pitching just makes you think it comes back to the hitting. But it's fine. It's fine. They could host a regional. They could win a regional. And then, you'd feel okay with them against anybody in a super regional.
Yes.
Because of that starting pitching. They can't win in Omaha. They could win a game in Omaha. They're not built to win a national championship because
is where we get into the extremes with everybody's opinion. I know, David, you weigh in on a regular basis, and I appreciate you watching and listening to the program. You hate Mike Martin Jr., and you hate Florida State baseball as it's currently constructed. I get it. There's nothing that they can do that would ever make you happy. If they go to the College World Series, you're going to say they suck. They very well may go to the College World Series, and sometimes they suck. That's who they are. I mean, that's who they were late in Eleven's career as well.
Yeah.
The team that went out to Omaha was, for the most part that season, the one that won on the road at basically the haven of greatness in Baton Rouge, which is LSU. That team that went to the College World Series by winning in that location and that hostile environment wasn't any good all year long.
That might have been the worst team he ever had.
Yeah,
really,
there
since
they
he was
were
at Florida State.
And there they were. So my point is, also I would point out, they don't stink. They're top 23 in the RPI, top 21 in the RPI. They're not a juggernaut team that I would project to go to the World Series. They're not a team that I think can win the World Series. They're not one of Florida State's better teams that we've seen in the last 30 years, 20 years, but they don't stink. They don't stink.
I think the concern is, I would think, with this baseball program, and we'll get to questions in a second, guys. There might be some baseball questions in there, if there are any questions at all. But why is the offense like this? Why is the offense? It used to be top 10 in the country in runs scored. It used to be top 1 in walks, and now it's middle of the road in walks, and it is last in the ACC in runs scored. And that just doesn't after not being very good last year offensively, and that was with the best catcher in the country, hitting 2 home runs every weekend. You lose him, and now you have literally one of the worst offenses in the Power 5, and the worst offense in your own conference. That doesn't make sense, and there is a little hope moving forward because your 2 best hitters are probably those 2 freshmen. But after that, there's a lot of Lacey, Albert, Terrell, they're all gone. What's going on with the hitting? Is he going to bring in guys that can hit? Because this is absurd, the way this offense has kind of gone up and down, and mostly down.
Well, they don't have a lot of power, but you point to the 2 freshmen, and those are elite players. I think Tibbs is a superstar, period.
Yeah, he's great. His swing is great.
Yeah, and it's one of the most beautiful swings in college baseball. I would argue, if I were arguing the other side, if I were going to be a big supporter and say I'm all in on what this offense will be in 2 and 3 years, the argument that you would make, and by the way, I'm somewhere in the middle on this, just so people know, because I have my criticism of Mike Martin Jr. and what this team is currently. I've been complaining for 7 years about how bad they are defensively and how terrible they are running the bases. And that is coaching. There's no excuse for them to be this bad running the bases year in and year out. So anyhow, the point is, I can criticize as well as uplift. But what I would argue is that at the end of Mike Martin's career, the last 5 to 6 years, certainly, they were a man short when it came to a coaching staff on the road recruiting, because he wasn't. So you were kind of doing this with one arm tied behind your back. And what Meat would tell you, I think, is that allowed you to construct a roster that was competitive but not elite. And so when he finally got control of the team, then he thought, I've got to flip this roster. Some of the chances we had to take aren't working out. We got too much swing and miss there, and we're going to move on from that. But you don't flip a roster in 2 seasons. And so he's got guys he could point to that are part of the younger class that he feels very good about, that long-term project as great hitters, and other guys that he brought in to fill the roster. Now, I know the counter to it, Corey, and I'm with you, because you can look at some guys that have gone elsewhere, and they're hitting now. So that's a fair counterpoint. I'm just saying it's a little bit more nuanced than they are all this or all that, and he's why or he's right or wrong. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. It will be curious to see, though. I think the jury is obviously still out. I mean, we have to find out. What if they go to the College World Series this year? None of us would be stunned. None of us would be stunned if they went to the College World Series. If you go to the College World Series and you're one of the last 8 teams standing,
it's
aren't
a
you by
successful
definition?
Season. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead, Corey.
No, go ahead, Tom. We've talked too much.
Well, I was going to say that, a regional, I think, is the higher hurdle to climb. I think it's less surprising if they win a super regional. It's more surprising if they were to win a standard regional. And the question is, if you're hosting, then who would you start on Friday? Because you got to get cute a little bit to save Messick. If the pitching staff looked like we thought it was going to look in February, it wouldn't matter who you threw on Friday because you got two arms right behind them. But that's not the case now. And then the thing I'd say about this particular team is when they're going bad in the batter's box, and I go back to the interview that you had with Mike Martin Jr. here on Warchant TV and the JCS the beginning of the year, he talked about how going to all fields took some time in terms of mentality on the roster. Like he had to break them almost, that they didn't believe in the system. They didn't believe in the way of, using the entire field, either in the infield or the outfield, to spray the baseball around. And once he got them to embrace that, then you're going to see the results. Well, I don't think that's borne out through this season. When you see the slumps going, these guys look wound tight. These at-bats look very in between, and it looks like guys are just wound very, very tight, more afraid of failure than attacking the baseball. So that's the thing. What offense are you going to see? Because they are streaky. I don't know who it was in the chat.
They're very streaky.
Chris bought that they're streaky. Yeah, I mean, they can get hot, but when they're not going right, it looks more mental than anything else, and that's the thing that I would be worried about. And maybe that's worth levying criticism when the season's over. But we'll see. They might get on a hot streak towards the end of the season.
Really quick, and I'll get to questions. We've got plenty of time to get to questions because there aren't that many. But, Corey, one thing I will say to Tom's point, and I wonder if you have the same observation. I know you watch intently, so that's why I'm asking you. Did you notice after they went on that terrible stretch where they couldn't do anything right offensively, and to, I think, compound the problem, they also weren't picking up the ball. But one thing to note, it's almost as Meat said, screw it, guys, go have fun. And they went out and played their best brand of baseball. He even said, I think in the press conference where he said that he just simplified everything and just said, let's just go play some baseball. To Tom's point, I mean, Meat is wound tight.
Did we lose Jeff, Tom?
We may have. So he's wound tightly was his point. Is Meat and his personality making its way onto the dugout, into the batter's box, and obviously overall in the offensive. There he is. He's back. Are they slumping because their coach is tight and they're an extension of their coach? I think was his question.
Yeah, that was my point. Is players are often an extension of their coach, and he is wound tightly. And only after he was forced to kind of take a step back and say, "Hey guys, just go play baseball. We're better than this." Did they play well? I don't know how you cultivate that, but he probably needs to.
Yeah, and look, man, they've got some guys like the carry-on kid. He had a nice tear there. Brett Roberts was really good this weekend. Terrell. He is what he is, but he might hit you a couple home runs in a weekend. He's your only legitimate power threat other than Tibbs, I would say. And then Tibbs and Ferrer are very good. That's going to be an incredible 1-2 duo if they keep developing. So there's some stuff there to like. It's just, again, I think it comes back to this offense going from what it used to be to now being the worst team and the worst offense in the ACC is staggering. It's just alarming. But it might just be a two-off. It might just be a new coach, new system, trying to rebuild a roster in the middle of COVID. This is why this hitting lineup looks this way. But again, next year it needs to be better, I think. And I don't think any of us would be surprised if they went 0-2. And I don't think any of us would be stunned if they made it to Omaha, because that's how this season is borne out. They have lost to some awful teams, and they have swept some good teams and beaten some great teams. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they won this series against Miami at all. I also wouldn't be surprised if they got swept today by Jacksonville. That's just where we are with this baseball team, I think.
Sean writes, Corey said something a few weeks ago that I completely agree with. Montgomery did an excellent job in closing against Louisville. What reason would we not be using him now? I don't get it. This is still an obvious weak spot for this team.
Agreed. You're not getting from Carson Montgomery. By the way, Wyatt Crowell right now is maybe the second best pitcher on the team behind Messick. He has been awesome. So I don't know that you probably like him in the long relief spot, but why keep going to Crowell in the fifth when you're already down and you've given up 2 or 3 runs? Why not start the guy on Saturday? He's your Saturday starter. Carson Montgomery was electric the 2 times he closed. He was throwing 97 with nasty stuff. You have him and Hare back to back. Now all of a sudden you're talking about a leap back into the bullpen, and Scolaro scoots down a little bit in the order, which is good for everyone. So if you have those 2 guys as your back end guys to go along with Messick and Hubbard, and Crowell's no slouch out there, that's a really good top 5. I don't know. I think you get more out of Montgomery pitching him twice a weekend or twice in a super regional or regional than for 4 innings in the middle of the series. I just think he gives you more this year. I know he wants to be a starter, make him a starter next year. This year, I think he helps the team more as a closer.
Yeah, to me, this reeks of a situation where, the kid projects as something and you want to protect that, but you've also, it's May. It's May, and it hasn't happened for him this year. So, where can he make the biggest impact? Bad film is bad film to the pros. And if you keep starting midweek or whatever it is and you have uneven results, that's not going to do you any good. But if you show explosiveness in the 8th or the 9th innings, to Corey's point, and you are throwing 96, 97, and you're missing bats, well, that's good film. So, scouts are going to think higher of you, and then they'll show up, more of them will, to your starts next season. So, yeah, for the purposes of this team, he's got to be the closer, I think.
Well, at the end of the day, all scouts are looking at is stuff. They're going to make you whatever they want to make you when you go on to the minors, whether they're going to convert you to a starter or a closer or a middle reliever, doesn't matter, a lefty specialist, whatever, although they're lesser than those guys than ever before because of the new rules. But it's about stuff, and he's got stuff, and he can show it off when he's only got to pitch an inning.
Right.
And you see that. And I think that's to the point that we're all making here is that let him be at his best, which seems to be missing bats, throwing 97, 98 with a secondary pitch that he can also throw for a strike. So we'll see. College baseball is weird. It's different than pro baseball. You do see this happen all the time. You get into the postseason and some guys' roles change every now and again. It's not ideal. I know in pro baseball, that's not the way they want to do it, but they do it in college baseball on the regular. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV continues in a moment.
The privilege to work at Paul's Termite and Pest Control are Paul.
We're proud to call ourselves Paul because we work for a company that puts our customers first. We love what we do, and we love the principles our company demands.
Give our customers more than they expect and do everything within our power to keep them safe and comfortable.
We make a difference every day and know we protect the health of our thousands of North Florida customers that we are honored to call our friends.
And we're looking to bring a few more Pauls to our growing family. We have several openings now or in the very near future. Positions include termite, lawn, and general pest techs, route managers, inside sales, and customer service reps. Visit callpauls.com to see what's available and to find out how to apply. Every Pauls receives competitive pay with outstanding benefits, including health insurance, 401k, paid leave time, and holidays.
I'm Paul.
I'm Paul.
I'm Paul.
And you could be Paul, too, for the elimination of termites and other pests.
And a greener lawn, too. Call Paul's. We've been getting them all in North Florida for over 50 years.
You were always more than my mom. You were my role model, my best friend, and biggest supporter. You filled my days with unconditional love. And you also prepared for the day when you couldn't be here. Because of the woman you were back then, I'm able to be the woman I am now. Your planning made this moment possible.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
This is Andy Cohen. When I was a law enforcement officer, I devoted my life to a career of service and protection. Who's protecting you? Give me a call. 850-671-FARM. That's 671-FARM. Helping you is what we do best.
Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi. Not licensed to do business in all 50 states.
All right, about that time to upgrade my iPad and my Apple Gear. How much memory do I need? What upgrade should I get? What size screen? How many chargers do I need? USB-C, USB-D, mini USB, USB-B, ABC, 1, 2, 3?
If only there was a local business that can guide you and help you understand what you need and get you the best pricing possible. Oh, wait, that's what they do over at Macklemore Systems on Capitol Circle. Get help buying the right gear for the right price and have it shipped directly to their store for pickup, all at no extra cost. That's the kind of service you won't get at any big box store. Shop local at Macklemore Systems. Find out more online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com. We conquer all peaks. We fix those darn leaks. Call 850-766-1340. T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com.
License number CCC 1331204.
leaky faucet, busted pipes, clogged toilet? M&L Plumbing is here for you. For all commercial, construction, and residential plumbing issues, call M&L Plumbing at 575-9393 or visit online at mnlplumbing.com.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark.
Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Good to be with you. Had more headliner questions. Let's get to them here. I'll start rapid firing these things. What specific positions will we be highly competitive what specific positions will be highly competitive once fall camp starts? He wants our opinion. Position groups, cornerback, running back, offensive line, you name it. I think that other corner is probably as high on the list as any of them, right? I mean, we know across from Duke, there's going to be a lot of competition there.
Yeah, I would say that. I'd say that one, wide receiver. I mean, there's not. I think we think Pittman and Pokey are two mainstays. They're going to be starters, but that other third spot, there'll be a lot of competition for that. And running back, I mean, I think the difference is we know Ward and Benson are both going to play.
Yeah,
but so I don't even know if it matters really who the starter is necessarily, but it will be a pretty interesting competition. I assume Ward will start if he's healthy, but who gets the most carries throughout the season, I think that'll be really interesting to monitor.
Yeah, you could see a situation in which Ward starts 10 games out of the 12, and yet Benson has, 30% more touches than Trayshawn just because of what Benson brings versatility-wise. I think the offensive line, obviously, there's going to be battles in the interior. If you look center all the way to right tackle, I mean, you could shuffle 4 or 5 names right now, maybe 3 or 4 that could fit any one of those positions. I've brought it up a lot lately on all the formats here on Warchant, but Caden Lyles is going to be one of the players I watch the most in fall camp because he just didn't – it's an incomplete grade for what you saw in the spring. And if he's at center, then a big domino falls and other things fall into place. But if he's not, then, you got to start looking at the 2 deep and scratching your head and saying, where the heck does FSU go? I'm sure he'll end up being the starter, but you got to prove it. And then there are other positions like, does Bless Harris end up at right guard or right tackle? Is Darius actually a right guard? So the O-line has a lot to shuffle out as well.
I'll be pinned to the O-line the whole time. I always am. I think it's the number one thing that keeps you from being a good team. You might be a slightly above average team with a modicum of improvement there, but if you don't get a lot better there and deeper to withstand the injuries that happen in the trenches every year to almost all football teams, then you really can't excel. They're one player going down for a couple weeks away from losing a game they shouldn't lose. They don't really have a starting 5 that I love, but they sure as hell don't have 6 or 7 that I love. So, Bless Harris, basically, you just admitted it, Tom, is going to have to start. They didn't bring him in to start. He was going to be a backup, but now I think he has to start. He's one of your best 5. I think we now know that a couple of guys that they thought would take a step forward this past spring camp kind of didn't. Let's be honest, they didn't. Caden Lyles is a guy that I need to see rep a lot once fall camp starts because he sure as hell didn't do it in spring. Now, he's got the body for it, and we all saw that, but I need him to play. And I also think they need to get that kid from Charlotte that Atkins has experience with that maybe they're talking about bringing in the transfer portal to add some depth there. If you go back and look at his film, he's not terrible. He could help this team. He could be that group of 6 or 7 that we talk about. So that's going to be highly competitive on the offensive line. And they need to get more bodies in here for that. I feel like a broken record. I talk about it incessantly because I think it's the most pressing need.
Yeah, be cool if they did it. Be cool if they actually did it, right?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
The one body that could emerge out of nowhere, and the coaches are so high on him, and they keep talking him up in spring as he gets healthier, is Thomas Schrader. And if Schrader ends up being able to be at a level that's conditioned, he's conditioned enough to play most of practice or give you 20 or 30 reps a game, then he could emerge as an option in the interior of the O-line that helps other things shuffle. But you just can't count on it. And I feel like with 4 or 5 of those dudes on the O-line, it's either you cannot count on them because there are mental hurdles to climb or health hurdles to climb. It's like Major League. Everybody's got an arm thing or a leg thing or a head thing. But maybe they dip into the portal and get one or two guys. If they
Somebody
do
in the
that,
chat asked, Glenn asked, more pressure on Dugans or Fuller this year, and I think it's Ron Dugans. They tried to basically move on from Dugans, in my opinion, this offseason. They couldn't. And so I think that another poor year from the receiving core. The biggest problem he has, beyond the fact that segment group doesn't produce anything, is he also doesn't do a good job of recruiting that segment group. That's a deadly combination.
It's a double whammy. So some refer to that as a double whammy.
Yeah, that is disastrous.
Right.
Is another descriptor, is to have a guy that's not coaching them to excel on the field, nor bringing in players of any kind that would allow for that to happen. All right, so we move forward with Matt's question. Any updates on the state of FSU basketball? Did John Butler leave? Anybody else leaving? Do we need to know about people leaving? No, right?
I mean, nothing is like official yet, but don't be surprised if John Butler isn't on the team anymore. I would go ahead and say that.
Right.
And I know Jeff, you've talked about it. It's a precarious moment in Florida State basketball. It really is. You lost a really, really important assistant coach. You did not bring in a recruiting class that is up to the standards you've set over the last 5 years. They might end up all being great, sure, but you're used to bringing in 1 5-star every year: a Scotty Barnes, a Matthew Cleveland, Dwayne Bacon, on and on, Jonathan Isaac. That didn't happen with this class. You were in on some. None of them said yes to you. Might have had something to do with maybe what other schools were offering legally to come play for them that you weren't. But either way, you don't. And you just wonder, Cleveland and Mills are back. That's a good combination, but not a lot of like veteran experience. You just wonder, is this going to be like a plateau? Is what happened last year going to become the norm, or was it an aberration? And it's a legitimate worry right now because of the roster makeup right now, the fact they did not have a great recruiting class building on what they had done the last 5 years, and then losing CY like they did. I trust Leonard to get it done, but you can understand why there'd be some concern there.
It's the beginning of the end for Florida State basketball in the Leonard Hamilton era. I think we're watching the final stages of a brilliant career. Leonard will always rank highly in my mind as an all-time great in Florida State lore. And in college basketball has been better because he's been in it for as long as he has. I don't have a long-term belief that things are pointing in the right direction right now. As much as I love him, I think the devastating losses of 2 top-tier assistants over the last 5 years who helped keep your staff young, helped you in recruiting, I think is going to be too much to overcome. I don't like the roster. I think they're in trouble, Corey, to piggyback on what you said. I don't think they're going to be a top 4 or 5 ACC team this year. Would be surprised if they were top 7, frankly. And I think that we all should start to take a look around and see what's going to happen with Florida State basketball. It doesn't mean that he hasn't elevated the program to a place where it's now a more desirable job for a lot of high-profile coaches and guys that might make a major difference and propel this thing forward even more. I think they got screwed in the COVID year. I think they were a Final Four team. I think they had a legitimate chance to play for a national title. And I'm forever saddened for Coach Hamilton and those players and Florida State basketball fans forever that didn't get the chance that it deserved. Nobody's fault. It's a pandemic, but I think that team could have won it all, and we'll never know. And I don't think they're going to ever get close to being back there as they're currently constructed. So.
And I'm not as down on the roster as you are. I mean, Cameron Fletcher is a good player if he gets more mature, which he should. I mean, it's college basketball. Caleb Mills is a good scorer. Matthew Cleveland could be awesome. And Jalen Worley, I liked what I saw out of him. McLeod had moments. Like, there are guys on this team that you feel good about. It's just you don't have – and you really didn't have it last year because Malik was hurt. You don't – the beauty about Florida State is the culture that is instilled there. And I don't know who the culture givers are because your best players are all second-year guys. And you don't have a Trent Forrest or an MJ Walker or a Malik Osborne to kind of carry on the torch and show you what it means to play Florida State basketball. And that stuff matters, man, especially on a small team, a 15-person team. It really does matter. And you're losing a lot of guys that have been around for a lot of success. And these guys that are here now, most of them are used to watching Wyatt Wills get punched in the stomach and lose by 30 and not do anything about it. That's the team that's the team they played for. They didn't play for Trent Forrest dunking on Jordan Nwora. That wasn't their Florida State. So they don't have that in their blood yet. And they have to go make their own culture almost. And that's what I worry about. But talent wise, the roster's good, man. The roster's fine if they stay healthy. It's just, that's a big if, number one. And
yeah, but Corey, I think that's fleeting, and I think you believe that too, because NIL is going to be a problem for them competing.
It's going to be hard to get the Matthew Clevelands of the world to come here after this. That's what I'm concerned about the most.
Yeah, I think believe Leonard Hamilton. He told the truth when he said he was bothered by the new system. That means that he's not down with it, and maybe there are some corners that can't be cut, just because you don't have the resources. And then, one player in particular is Caleb Mills. He needs to look more like a Florida State guard. He needs to look tougher this next year. You need to be mentally tougher and physically tougher. Sometimes contact's not a bad thing. Trent Forrest has proven that time and time again. And if you're trying to instill that culture, you've got to have toughness from the guy who has the ball bringing it up the court the whole time, and he's just not tough enough.
He's not tough enough, and that's not going to happen overnight. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV continues in a moment.
Tornadoes touched down in the Big Bend Friday evening. The first tornado happened around 5:49 p.m. in the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge in Wakulla County. The other tornado happened in downtown Perry and was on the ground for almost a minute. The EF0 tornado touched down on South Quincy Street near West Homer J. Smith Avenue. Minimal damage was reported in both tornadoes. Elected leaders and advocates gathered to announce millions in new federal housing funds that are now available to struggling Florida homeowners. Florida has been appropriated $676 million as part of the Homeowner Assistance Fund, which was created last year through the American Rescue Plan. The funds are being administered through Florida's Department of Economic Opportunity. For a list of requirements to meet and for more information, go to the DEO website, or you can also call Senator Lori Berman's office at 561-292-6014. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at McLemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Sunny skies and calm this afternoon with highs around 85. Northeast winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Clear skies again tonight, lows around 60. Ample sunshine expected tomorrow, 87. Temps near average Thursday and Friday with highs in the mid-80s. Chance for scattered storms Friday. This report is brought to you by The Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 80.
Whitten Glass has been taking care of families since 1945.
Experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best, like Whitten's top-of-the-line bath enclosures. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Whitten Glass, and they provide precise installation.
Whitten Glass, Tallahassee's first family in glass. Online at whittenglass.com. Call 850-222-5781.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
It's Congressman Michael Waltz on the Greg Tish Show.
Good morning, Congressman. How are you doing?
Hey, doing well.
Again, just what you have to go through day in and day out. I don't know how you have hair left, or like Matty Rowe, just completely bald.
Hey!
Sorry.
And the irony of it all, the progressives are the tail wagging the dog. This whole bipartisan White House is a joke. We're just watching them eat their own.
The Greg Tish Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., only on Real Talk 93.3.
Seminole Headlines is brought to you by Register Sausage, serving the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. To find a store near you or to buy directly from Registers, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com.
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark.
One long, meaty segment to close out the show here, everybody, in honor of Register Sausage.
So meaty.
Yeah.
So meaty.
Long, meaty segment here, guys. Here we go. Question from the boards, by the way. Should make a note of this.
The Tribal
Jeff.
Council.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe
All right.
so. Tom, is this from the Tribal Council?
It is indeed.
You know, one of these days, I've made one comment on the tribal council since working for Warchant, and it was in response to somebody saying you did a good job filling in for me when I was sick.
Oh,
And
well, I appreciate you took the time. So you have a handle. I didn't know that. You have a handle?
You didn't see my follow-up. It was the spring game weekend when you had to fill in for like 19 hours because I was sick laying in bed and missed the spring game. Corey is about going in and out of here. What's going on with his Wi-Fi
Can you?
now?
That was crazy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got that.
That was nuts.
So somebody said Tom did a great job filling in, and I was like, I wrote, yes, he did, and that's the one comment I've made on the show.
Well, I'll be sure to point that out to Gene next time he asks if you're ever going to comment on the board.
Jeff you'll be like, yeah, Jeff did it that one time. Remember?
Yeah, he did. He's commented before. He was very positive.
He filled his quota for the year. He's done.
Yeah.
He's in.
I wanted to respond to a question you were asked last week. Would you rather have an all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii or FSU baseball win a national title? I answered that before. He went on to say, well, I would love for FSU baseball to get a natty, but I also just got back from a mostly all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii, and man, it was nice. So my question for everybody is, where is your favorite vacation spot that you've been to, and where would you like to go to that you haven't? Corey?
Hawaii.
You can start.
Hawaii is my favorite vacation spot. I went there for my honeymoon. Shout out Shanna. It was a great 8 years. They can never take it away from us. I think it was 8. It might have been 10. Who knows? Who knows how long it was? It was somewhere in that range. Yeah. But went to Maui for my anniversary. It was awesome. It was an awesome place. It's not even like the real world when you're out there. It's like it's just surreal that there's a place like that exists theoretically in this country. I mean, I know it's our country, but it's the 50th state. Come on, but it doesn't feel like this country because it's so far away, but it is, and it was unbelievable.
Yes.
Where I'd like to go is Austin.
Well, you missed your window. Austin was once great. It is now fading fast, like so many other cities that get overrun by way too many people and horrific traffic.
Well, right, but still, I'm going to do it, Jeff. I'm going to drive. I can drive to Austin, and I'm going to drive to Austin.
No, you should go to Austin.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a land bridge to Hawaii that I'm not aware of?
No, California? I flew. I wasn't happy about it. I was convinced the plane was going to go down the night before we got on it. I was convinced. I told Shanna, like, I hope you're happy. Hope you're happy you picked this because we're going to die, and that's not going to be a good honeymoon at all. But it worked out. We flew. We landed, and we landed safely both times.
That would have cemented the marriage forevermore, though.
That's right. Those two young lovers holding hands as they crashed into the Pacific.
Yeah. My question is, would you have been holding hands or would you have been going, I told you this was going to happen?
I would have been running up and down the aisles just slapping people.
This is why flying is ridiculous. One mistake and it's all over.
Somebody didn't screw in the bolt. I hope you're happy. The wing fell off.
The favorite place that I've been to, there's several, but I really, speaking of honeymoons, we went to Ireland and we drove basically the entirety of the island, and I was there for 10 days, and it was awesome. And so that I would say Ireland. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then where would I want to go? Maldives. I want to go to the Maldives. I've wanted to go there for a long time. It's, if it wasn't like a 19-hour plane ride, then I would probably be going there sooner rather than later. But yeah, I want to go to the Maldives, and I want to do it.
That's where a lot of NBA players go for their vacations.
That's not a bad place to go.
About a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. So, Tom, quickly, yours.
Nothing really pops to mind. I've had a lot of good vacations, but there's not one that I'm like, that's the place that I was at my happiest. The places to go to would be Ireland, though. I really, really want to see Ireland, and I want to play golf out there. I think it would be phenomenal.
It would be. And also, my brother lived in Australia for a while, and Australia is an incredible place. Also, Ryan weighs in on the chat here that Croatia is amazing. And you know what? A buddy of mine was in the military for 18 years and served and was in Croatia. And yes, he said the same. So everybody's weighing in now. That's a beautiful thing. All right, let's get some more questions here. Nicholas wants to know on the subject of softball, what is a good bunting technique? I see players taking 2 steps into a run. Yes, that's the methodology of bunting in softball, and it was that way for many years, and that's kind of all they did for offense for a long time. Luckily, the sport has progressed to a place now where you see actual athletes kicking ass and not just a bunch of running out the box bunts, which got boring in about, I don't know, a minute and a half. Now
Sidney
it's a
Sherrill
deal.
hit 4 home runs this weekend after hitting 4 all season. That was crazy. I don't even know. There's not a ton of bunting as much as it's you're running. You can't be out of the box when you hit it, but you're slapping at it, and they're called slap hitters. But you're slapping as it's the speed people. It's like Mudge at the top of the lineup. They're almost always lefties. You got to be lefties because you're that much closer to first.
Out the box, yeah.
And you just slap. You are trying to ground the ball to the shortstop. And by the time you're out of the box, as long as you've timed it right, you'll be touching first base before the ball gets you there. But there aren't a ton of bunts. I don't think Florida State doesn't bunt a ton much at all. And I think that's a lot out of the game. But mainly, you're trying to get a running start. I guess you could theoretically do it in baseball too. You try to get a running start, and as long as you're not out of the batter's box when you make contact, but your momentum is already going towards first, just put the bat on the ball and run.
Yeah,
Ichiro used to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you see something akin to that in Japanese baseball, the swinging bunts or the drag bunts or whatever you want to call it from the left-handed batter's box, but it's just, it's not the American style of baseball. And there is a reason that Jeff calls people slappies.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah,
Corey is
slapping at it.
He's explained it. That's the bunch of slappies that Jeff refers to in multiple sports.
And it's also terrible to watch. And if baseball was played like that and or softball, I wouldn't watch it. It's awful. Troy writes, "Hi, fellas. It's obvious that Norvell and company know how to work the transfer portal, but how would you grade them in regards to developing talent on the roster? Some groups like receiver and tight end look like there is no development at all." Well, let's tackle this. Part of the problem you have is the clay you're working with on this roster. And so you can criticize recruiting in that regard. They have failed to bring in a talented tight end.
Or evaluating. You can criticize the evaluation aspect of it.
However you want to do it. The bottom line is the tight ends on this roster, at best, your best player at tight end is a below average to average ACC tight end. The others behind that particular starting tight end all suck. So that's the bottom line.
They're not proven yet. They're growing. They're growing. They're maturing. They're not there yet.
They're not very good at all. So there's that. And at wide receiver, I don't think Ron Dugans has done a good job. We all want Ron Dugans to do a good job. He's a Nole, and I remember him with nothing but great fondness. And I have no doubt his love and affinity for this program and his dedication to the craft. It's just that he's failing at his job. So at the end of the day, when you fail at your job, you get replaced. I think he's on the verge of being replaced. They better have a good season this year, or else he'll be coaching elsewhere, I do believe. Now, he does not have a ton to work with. They got a little unlucky. You brought in a proven guy in the Power 5, and he instantly, unfortunately, got into a car crash, and I don't know if he'll be available to you in Winston Wright this year. And then I think luckily they do have Pittman, who I think is going to make an instant impact for them. So that helps, but they still don't have a depth of talent at that position. They're not going to dominate the ACC at the wide receiver spot.
Yeah, I would like to see the guy, the best test case, the guinea pig for this class, for the receiving core is Kentron Portier. Like, is he going to be something? Like, this is his 3rd year on campus. I know his first year was a COVID year, but he's been here 3 years now, and there is a little bit to work with there. And I thought he had a pretty good spring. He made some flash plays in the spring. Is he going to be something? Or are all the guys going to be the guys that were here before Dugans or got here through the portal? Are those going to be like? Is he going to? Malik McLean's another guy. I want to see those two guys take steps. And then maybe you start to believe, okay, they're starting to grow up and mature and they're being developed. If Portier and McLean are still, 12 catches for 140 yards each and not really a factor, then yeah, you have to start really, really wondering about the development. I'm sure most of you are already, but that would almost cement it. Like, okay, none of these guys are developing at a rate that you would want. Malik McLean's that's some clay to work with. Make him something.
Yeah, he is. And he had a couple of sequences in spring where he said, that's it. But it just wasn't that consistent. On the positive side, I'd say, actually, if you look at defensive back, they've done a pretty good job. It took longer than we wanted to last year. Obviously, you're going 0-4. But from that point on in the season, you saw a defensive backcourt that looked like they were just content to do their jobs and trust everybody else to be where they needed to be. A couple of examples, Akeem Dent. I mean, Akeem Dent is now a fixture at safety, and he was somebody that fans were rightly screaming about through much of last season for effort plays or bad angles or what have you. He's been a much more solid player. Duke Cooper. I mean, he starts as a freshman, but that has to be development as well. You got to get a kid up to speed to be able to play in November of your freshman year. So there's a win there. I think there's going to be more examples with McCall and AZ Thomas in the near future. So, and maybe Renardo Green, if he emerges as the other starter, then you have to give somebody credit on the staff for getting it out of him and summoning that ability out of him. And then the last one I'd say on defense is, I don't know if you want to give this credit to Marv or you want to give this credit to Randy Shannon, but Kalen DeLoach by the end of the season looked like a completely different linebacker than he was at the beginning of the season. So on defense, you've got a few guys that have developed some players. So it's not an all or nothing thing. I think on the defense, there's some good stories.
And I'm going to throw a caveat in real quick before we move on. I think for what Atkins has to work with, he does an amazing job. They have no business being able to run the ball with that group up front. And they run the ball consistently well. His quarterback is a little inconsistent at hitting some open guys, especially in the middle of the field in obvious passing downs. If he gets better, this offense will be better. And they do not have an elite offensive line. If this offense takes the step you want it to take, Corey, this year, and they are able to average just over 31 points and get to that place where they're winning football games because of the offense, Atkins will have had to have been lauded as an amazing coach. Now, I'd like him to, continue to bring in high caliber players like you see in this last class. He's got to do that again, because I think if you can get this out of the group you have, obviously with better clay, as I like to say, you're going to be trending towards the elite up front. So there's that. All right, next question. With the transfer portal coupled with NIL causing headaches in college football, I wanted to run this scenario by you. All players get 5 years. And once you commit to a school, you're committing for at least 3 years, with the opportunity to transfer only possible after the third year is completed. It's one of the only ways I see programs being able to have some sort of control and stability without kids just bouncing willy-nilly. What say you? Hashtag #RockAssSolid.
I mean, I'm all for it. The one counter I'd say to it is your coaches don't have to do that. Your coaches can break contracts all the time. So why are the players going to be held to a higher standard than your coaches that are getting paid millions of dollars?
That's the caveat. That's where you say if your coach leaves that you committed to, then you have the right instantly to leave if you'd like as well.
Well, right, but I mean, again, they sign contracts and break them all the time. So would the school? I mean, I don't understand the equity there of the 45-year-old getting to leave, but the 19-year-old who's not happy has to stay. Like, I don't understand why we would think that was fair. I mean, I know it's better for the sport and it's better for us as fans of the sport, but it's just, that doesn't seem fair. Like,
there's a little sense of the way they do it in baseball that way, Corey, to some extent, right? Once you're on campus, once you've committed, you can transfer, but we're talking about staying or going pro.
Right.
And some similarities there. I think this is all geared towards people trying to figure out how to get control of the rosters and not having to worry about re-recruiting your own roster every damn year. But yeah, there's always a comeback to that. And you're bringing up a good point. It's that, well, wait a minute, is that really fair? I don't know what the right system is. Either do they, obviously, at this point, as we continue to get frustrated. Miles writes, fellas, when are we done playing all these slappies so that we can rack up some W's? Unlike like how we hate ending our football season in early September due to scheduling top 25 opponents, I believe the baseball team should only schedule every top 25 team and tell them to come get this. How far do each of you think this team will go? All right, so this is in regards to baseball, and he is saying, it's funny, schedule only top 25 teams. I agree with him on that, by the way. I would schedule the most difficult schedule any team could play in the country, because you could go a game over 500 and make the postseason, and your RPI would still be high.
Well, yeah, but you also could lose like some of your kids like in the middle, like by the third week of the season, because they're 0 for 26 because they're facing the kid from Tennessee that's throwing
kids, Corey.
Well, true. Hey, you might. No, I do think, man, there is something to be said for winning some series. You want to get some wins under your belt. You don't want to be 14-19. No matter, you might have the number one strength of schedule in the country. If you're 14-19, you're not feeling good about your season, and you're not guaranteed of a postseason spot. You need some automatic dubs. But I think I like Meade's schedule this year. TCU, Cal. Yep. I mean, that was cool. I like that they were different kinds of teams that came in. So I like more of that. And still, but the midweek, look, in the midweek, you got to play the teams from your state, most likely, or teams from driving distance. You just have to. Those midweek games are for those teams. It's for North Florida, for Stetson, for Jacksonville, for Mercer. Those are in every school does it. Tennessee plays the smaller schools in Tennessee. Kentucky plays the smaller schools in Kentucky. It's just how midweek works.
Yeah, agreed. And I'd say that I like their chances. We talked about this earlier. I like their chances to go and get through a super regional more than a regional. So like that's the one you sweat, because regionals tend to expose you if you don't have pitching depth, and unless they straighten out all those answers for the long man, the closer, and stuff like that, you could see where Florida State ends up in the losers bracket pretty quickly. So if they can get out of a regional, though, I like their chances to get to Omaha. It's just that's a big if.
So folks on the chat, and this will be the last of our questions, asked if Dillingham was an overrated OC. You know, it's a funny question because depending on who you ask, you'll get very different answers. A lot of times we get a sense behind the scenes from talking to people, players, other assistant coaches, people in the sport, what a guy is or is not, or what his reputation is. And Corey and Tom, I wonder if you agree with me. His was polarizing. There were people who really believed in the direction he was headed, really believe in who he is and his energy and what he can down the line be. They believe he's destined to be a head coach for sure. And there are others who think that he was a hindrance and that this is a much better situation with Atkins now taking over as OC, and that he'll pair nicely with Norvell, and those two will work well from a game plan standpoint. I don't know. I could make an argument both ways, but I know that his reputation was pretty polarizing.
I also think he was rated about right. I don't know that when he started here, people were like, oh, we got the second coming. This is the next Bill Walsh. This is a modern-day Bill Walsh. I just think there were a lot of question marks about him, and I feel, but rightly so. He's young. He'd only been an OC a real OC for 1 year at Auburn, and even then that was Malzahn's offense. So, he comes here, and look, man, I think there's still question marks about who he is. I mean, we watched that offense the last 2 years. It had moments, and there was certainly some limitations placed upon him by the personnel. But you weren't wowed every week by the game plan. Now, you were wowed certain times, and you could see what they were trying to do. But there are a lot of OCs that are really smart, that know what they're trying to do. Some of them score more than 27 points, even with limited personnel. So I think we'll see much more about him, because I feel like at Oregon it's going to be his offense, right?
Going to be completely his offense. That's why he took that job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really interested. Now, I think he has a little more to work with out there right now, especially up front. What that looks like in 2 or 3 years. And I think we'll know what Kenny Dillingham is. I don't think any of us have a real good idea of just how good this guy is and what his ascension is, and if he's going to be a Power 5 head coach within the next 5 years or not. This stint at Oregon will tell us everything, I think.
To put a ribbon on this as we get wrapped up here, I'll just say that I do really love the marriage of Atkins and Norvell. I think they see the game the same. Norvell loved Atkins when he brought him in, and that relationship has grown. I actually think they have a chance to have a real symbiotic relationship. For Corey and Tom, I'm Jeff. Thanks so much to Director Matthew and all of you for watching and listening. Be well, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Peace.